Testing, testing. Um, I just want to address this very popularized debate. I guess you can call it a debate. Late night. Thanks for hanging with me in late night. I just want to touch on something really quickly. I'm not going to be long, but there's a reason why this debate actually matters more than others probably know. If you're unfamiliar with Billy Carson, how about I pull up Billy Carson's thing? Billy Carson is I guess he's definitely a famous YouTuber now. Um, but he's a famous YouTuber that is very into what once upon a time used to be referred to as woke. Before wokeism entered into academia and it was given, I guess, a proper title and proper definition. Actually, it's not a proper title, just a proper definition. Maybe even that too, maybe to that. But before that, when one was woke, it was a terminology used in urban context, inner city context, majority Black American context. And what it denoted was an individual who sees things for as they are rather than being blinded by the veil. Now, there's still more that needs to be fleshed out regarding that. That sees things as they are, meaning lies, that sees the lies that are being told to us on a day to day basis. Typically, those lies involve majority culture beliefs, hegemonic beliefs, American majority culture belief systems. So, when it comes down to religion, obviously Christianity was the prime suspect, as it's been told that Christianity is just a result of hegemonic powers and their own religious belief structures. So they typically attack those things when you're woke. There was some overlap with being woke as far as government conspiracies, cover-ups, and things like that. But whenever it crossed over into the religious threshold, it was always Christianity that was under attack. So at any point, you could stumble upon a documentary that's telling you the secrets about religion. That's the way it would be titled, but it would be Christianity that's under attack, typically. As a matter of fact, I came to Christ watching one of these documentaries because it was so poorly done in its attack of Christianity that it led me to read the scriptures. And now here I am as a pastor dedicating my life to Christ and raising my family in the knowledge of the Lord. So great job, whoever made that documentary. So it's important for people to know that Billy Carson is a product of his environment. He's not coming up with something new. He's actually just repackaging something that's existed for many, many decades in Black American contexts. But he's just a little bit more articulate than your typical espouser of this nonsense. When you think about hip hop culture, if you've never, I guess, really dove into what it means to be in hip hop culture is pseudo religious, if not religious in general. Hip hop culture from its beginnings has religious undertones. And that when you get down to the early hip hop groups, kind of right in the beginning, you got your KRS Ones, you have your Wu Tang Clangs, all of these individuals um, were marching to the beat of a religious drum. And that religious drum inherently opposed um, whatever the hegemonic religious belief system was that they would say what the belief system was, which is typically Christianity. So that's where you get your Black Hebrew Israelitism from. That's where you get what's called five percenters from. There are a lot of different YouTube creators dedicated their Christian content to exposing these things. Vocab Malone has dedicated a long career to debating Hebrew Israelitism. Um, and there are a couple others. God Logic, he dwells in a lot of different other apologetics as well. But these individuals who have done what Billy Carson has done came from a more raw background, and Billy Carson is he's polished. He's polished in his content. And so it's become a little bit, it's just repackaged and it's things that we've seen before. Now let's look at some of his stuff. Um, listen to this.
If you look at Debunking, located in Turkey, you discover they have a place underground that can house up to 30,000 people. This underground city was literally built using amazing technology, and there's no evidence of any collapse, even though the structure goes down as many as 12 stories. There were even areas in there for worship and even for livestock. In this underground city, there are 14,000 ventilation shafts, which lead air to the deepest of levels. According to the local indigenous people, the ant people helped build this structure and took them down there. Down there for what? To hide from what? Was it a geological disaster or was it a war? You see similar stories happening in Egypt, where there are depictions of ant people in Egypt on ancient artifacts, and the story is the same. These ant people at some time in the distant past came and took most of the civilization underground. We see the story again duplicated in the Americas with the Hopi tribe, where they themselves have carved on rock and stone a depiction of these same ant people taking them underground to avoid some type of catastrophe. If you look at
Okay, so that's an example, very outlandish example, but he's typically an outlandish guy, and he espouses things like this. I don't think there was any need to dive into the weeds of this type of stuff that he's talking about, because what he does is he takes this very interesting stuff that people aren't even concerned whether or not it's falsifiable in these clips, and he will compile them in order to build credibility, in order to do what? Finally tear down Christianity. It all comes back to that, right? And when he's tearing down Christianity, that's the heart of it. And you saw that in that debate when it came down to the frivolous claims he had against Christianity, biblical, ancient Christianity, which its predecessor, Judaism, Hebraic Judaism in the Old Testament, is linked to it. And builds into the coming of the Messiah and the recognition of that Messiah in Jesus Christ, which has then spurred on Christianity. So it's nothing new. I want to show you guys some people you maybe never have heard of before. Some people you've probably never heard of before in regards to their link to some of the things that Billy Carson has taught. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Professor Griff. This comes from hip hop culture. Um, I haven't looked up a Professor Griff video in a very long time, so I'm sitting here just scrolling through this page, trying to find something that he's talking about. Let me get off of this and let's just go to him. Something that he could be talking about. Um, and let me just try to find a clip of him so that you can become familiar with him and see the similarities of these things.
It's Professor Griff, Public Enemy. I need y'all to stay tuned for any lectures.
All right, hold on. Let's just go to his videos. Sorry, bear with me here. I'm doing this live. I probably should have been prepared, but it's late night and I just wanted to. So let's see what this clip is.
Greetings, it's Professor Griff of Public Enemy. Welcome to the Oculus Inc. The Oculus, they are the ultra secret society. They are the ones that manipulate and control your perception. They're actually the gatekeepers of your perception. The Oculus are the ones that actually write the prescription. They are the ones to determine who and why you're seeing what you're actually seeing through signs and symbols. These signs and symbols, we see them every single day. Your banks, your fast food stores, energy companies, gas stations, car companies, sports teams, all of them have signs and symbols that they use in such a way where they speak a language to one another. These are the things that the Oculus controls. The Oculus Inc.
Okay, so that's Professor Griff from Public Enemy #1. I don't know if you're familiar with that group, but Professor Griff has been doing this for a long time. A long time. I mean, I remember when I used to go get my hair cut at the barbershop. You go get your hair cut at the barbershop, and there are DVDs being passed on with VHS tapes before that. And it's Professor Griff documentaries and Dr. John Henrik Clark. Some people might be mad at me hearing that on YouTube, especially if you're black. But there are some things regarding, this culture of misinformation regarding faith and belief has been plaguing Black Americans for a long time. It's not exclusive. I'm just talking about this specific style of content as what's been plaguing Black Americans for a long time. And the way it's packaged is it's packaged with a flood of information, kind of like that trailer you just watched. That it's a flood of information that you're given. It's a bunch of details, and maybe there are some dots that do connect, and there's some overlap of some truth. But the fact that it's falsifiable, or whether or not it's falsifiable, it's beyond us. We're not concerned with it. We just realize that we just gained some information and our neighbor probably doesn't have, and there is a prestige to being woke. Back to when that meant, that's what woke meant. And that is the prestige that Billy Carson has been building off of. Let's look at some things from Dr. John Henry Clark. Now he's an OG. He's an OG. Let's look at something from his page and let's listen to him.
Now, the Roman Empire internally was not very rich. Africa became the breadbasket for the Roman Empire. And except for Africa, the Roman Empire would not have been able to sustain itself. Now, the Roman presence in North Africa is going to force into being one of the great events in human history. Roman taxation, Roman oppression would cause people to turn to new gods and question old gods, to turn to a story about a God who comes forth to rescue them. Now, they would draw from African folklore the story of the child in the manger. And what am I saying? Later, in retrospect, he was referred to as Jesus Christ.
All right, so really quickly, what he's saying is that through Roman oppression, Roman taxation, the way that taxation and that oppression overall in Africa, Northern Africa, the way it took shape is by having Christianity rise. But he also said in that very statement that in their delivering of Christianity to Northern Africans, they drew from African folklore the story of the baby in the manger that we now know as Jesus. And so the reason why I'm showing you all of this is because this is easy to do. You sit down and you espouse things, you say things, but all that happened in the Billy Carson Wes Huff debate is Billy got cross-examined just with questions. That's all. Just ask questions. Now, unfortunately for him, he got asked questions by an expert in the field to which he was espousing information, from which he was espousing information. A lot of assertions that we know not to be true. And not only these assertions are these assertions not true, they have withstood the test of time. It's 2024. You can't just come up with things about Christianity and then say, hey, this was the case, and then think that people are supposed to eat it up. But unfortunately, people do eat it up. And they have been eating it up for a long time. And there are many premises, very strong premises that they're building on. The first strong one is that Christianity belongs to the man, the white man, that it is a white man's religion. But then, since we've been displaced from that a little bit, what has happened in this colloquial term of the black church is that Christianity has been taken from the white man now, and now we've blackified it. We've made it ours, as if Christianity isn't the recognition that the center of history is not man, but man's maker. And it's not American, but it's global. But we're so gone in that, and these premises have been unchecked for decades, that this debate really tore down a lot of premises that have been unchecked for decades. And I hope a lot of people watch it. Let's continue listening to Dr. Henry Clark and let's see what he's saying.
Now, you can argue about the coloration of Christ if you want to, but I can sell that very quick and we can go on to the next subject. Was he a Roman? The answer is no. Was he a Greek? The answer is still no. These were the only European types in that part of the world at the time. If he was neither Roman or Greek, he was one of those other people. And all of those other people were non-European and non-white. And he came from the other people.
During that time of Roman dominance, Africans hold high military and administrative posts in the empire.
The Romans and the Greeks had no color prejudice comparable to the kind of
Something that's significant about this revisionist history he's done in Northern Africa is that you have church fathers who are African. They're African. But if you've counterfeited or you've unsubstantiated their Christian faith, their profession, then you've removed any type of credibility from what they would espouse as the truth, the gospel that they have declared as a result of eyewitness testimony in our scriptures. And so it starts with the revisionist history, right? Which needs to be checked. It needs to be cross-examined. But these types of things have happened for a long time, and they've been regurgitated and built upon and changed. The irony, because that's what they claim has happened to the Bible. Meanwhile, the Bible has withstood time and it's falsifiable, and you can check it, and it's gone up against the toughest of critics, and yet here we are still. Let's continue.
prejudice we will know later on. Otherwise, why would 3 Africans become emperors of Rome? Why would there be 3 African popes? Finally, Constantine decided to make Christianity the religion of the whole of the Roman Empire. Now we're coming to the critical period when the Roman domination of the church so corrupted the church, the Africans began some disenchantment with.
So now, just I'm sorry to keep stopping it, but this is what's important. If you're thinking critically and you're listening to every word here, now remember from the beginning, he says that Christianity arose in Africa through oppression, Roman oppression, and they stole from their own African folklore, and I guess created this amalgamation of a belief system where Jesus is the savior of the world. But now he's talking about how Rome corrupted the church. Well, what church? The church is a direct result of Christ. So if Christ is just a figment of Roman imagination from after drawing from African folklore, then what corruption is there to be done to a church? That's just an important question.
The Roman interpretation of Christianity, Constantine calls a council of bishops and priests at a place called Nice. It's the Nicaean Conference.
It was called Nicaea, not Nice. It's called Nicaea.
It is at this conference that the European created a European concept of Christianity.
All right. So that's a big claim. It's a very popular one. Now, this is old, right? I'm sort of being unfair. This is old, but I'm proving a point to you here. Well, this specific video was uploaded in 2017, but that's not when this documentary that it's highlighting was made. Dr. Henry Clark has been doing this for a long time. And it's from a documentary called How Jesus Was Invented. So the thesis is that what one would assume that he is a mythicist, that Jesus is not a historical figure. That in and of itself is a bold claim, right? that is a bold claim that Jesus is not a historical figure. And there is no reputable scholar that jumps on that bandwagon. I don't care if you're Christian or not. There is no reputable scholar that jumps on the bandwagon that Jesus was not a historical figure. There is way too much evidence extant that shows that he was a historical figure. But let's not deal with that. What we're dealing with is we're dealing with the fact that he is just, he claimed that the Council of Nicaea was a conference where they took their Roman interpretation of Christianity, and that's basically where they whitenized Christianity. There are a couple things we still need to deal with, right? Before that, we need to deal with whether or not Christianity is historical and then corrupted, or is it made up? We're dealing with contradictory claims here. It's not coherent. The argument itself is not coherent. But let's go past that. What he said was this council was a conference where they just whitewashed Christianity and they made up their European Bible and concept of Jesus. Meanwhile, if you've read anything about the Council of Nicaea, that's not what was going on. Is actually arguing about doctrine and the deity of Christ, and it was arguing on the substantive deity, the substantive ontology of Jesus. Who is Jesus? Is he part human, part God? Is he all human, some God? I mean, what is it? I'm not going to use all the fancy words that they're actually talking about there. You just need to understand the concepts. The concept was they needed to square down what the Christian profession, according to scripture, was of Christ. That's all it was. There was somebody who was saying something about Christ that was not biblical, and a bunch of other bishops and shepherds needed to get together and say, all right, let's get this squared away here. Are we declaring that this is therefore heretical other than teaching in scripture, that it's other teaching, it's not biblical and we should do away with it? Or are we accepting this teaching that says that Jesus is not really all God and whatever, that he does not have the same substance of God, is not made up of the same substance, or whatever it is? And their conclusion was no, that Jesus is of the same substance of God, that he in and of himself is God and a part of this Godhead, the triune, one true and living God, and shares the same substance, though a different person. And that was declared at the Council of Nicaea. Now, that can be easily debunked, right? And what Dr. Henry Clark said can be easily debunked because we have documentation from the council. So you can just look it up. You can just look it up. And so what's so I guess hopeful about the Billy Carson debate is that Billy Carson, because he's drawing off of this long line of teaching that is anti-Christian and pro-black, really pro-black culture, that underneath that pro-black culture is a foundation of very false premises regarding world history, sprinkling in with some truth of corruption, government corruption that goes into that package deal of the documentaries and stuff that you could watch at your famous barbershop. If you grew up in the hood like me, you could go and get a documentary that's talking about the hidden knowledge of whatever it is. That's what woke was once upon a time, before it is what it is today. And that is the foundation that Billy Carson was building on, but he actually mainstreamed it. He mainstreamed it, and he ventured out away from just the black white narrative. He ventured out into a cultural and global narrative where he's telling you these secrets about different religions around the world. But why was he doing that? All so that he could come right back to home base and tear down the profession of Christians. That's all it was. And what is so important is that it didn't take a lot of work from Wesley Huff to show his assertions, his claims to be frivolous, to be finite, to be nothing. He actually relinquished his stance very easy, very quickly. And so this is my prayer, and this is what I'll end with. My prayer is that Christians are watching that debate and not just cheering on and saying, "Oh yeah, Billy got fried, he got cooked in that." But especially if you're a Christian that's from the context I'm from, that you would actually look into some of the things that Wes Huff espoused, that you would look into his channel, subscribe to Wesley Huff's channel and other biblical scholars' channels that are defending the faith, and giving you the tools to do so, because something that has been deeply neglected in mainstream Christian apologetics is the hood. You have people like Eric Mason, who has come out with a book called, this is a while ago. I might have it behind me. Speaking of Wes Huff, I got books. I don't. I just moved. I think my other books are over in there. But Urban Apologetics, I think. Yeah, that's what it's called. Urban Apologetics. And it's come from the heart of the fact that there needed to be a guide for people to defend the faith against this very specific sect of anti-Christians that's built up in quote unquote black culture, in hip hop culture. And Culture Dome says Christianity is all made up by the enemy of the Most High. Yeah, I don't even know how to deal with that. That there's a lot of lies in that there, but that proves my point. There's a lot of deception. There's a lot of deception, and you can hear statements like this. Christianity is all made up by the enemy of the Most High. Look, that's fine to make that statement, Culture Dome. Thank you for watching and tuning in, by the way. That's fine to make that statement, but at the end of the day, you got to prove it. You got to show it. And we aren't just individuals that come up with some fairy tale story and say, hey, you got to believe it. There's actual evidence you can tap into. And even if you're somebody as popular and as prevalent as Billy Carson and you want to oppose it, you better come with receipts. You have to come with receipts. Culture Dome, I would encourage you to go watch the debate between Billy Carson and Wes Huff. Now, if you're saying, "Oh, I don't want to watch it," then you're not really seeking truth. I'm sorry about that, man, but you're not really seeking the truth. It's 2024, we have at our disposal so much regarding historicity and reliability of the scriptures. If you're genuinely interested, send me a message. Or hit us up on Instagram. Send me a message, DM me, send me an email, find it on YouTube, and say, hey, what can I look at to show? And I'll know you're serious. If you're just trolling, I'm sorry, I'm not putting that on you. But if you're just trolling right now, then I'm not going to give my energy to that because people are busy out here. But if you're genuine, hit me up. I'll send you a lot of things that you can look into. There's a lot that you can feed on to show that the claims of Christianity, aka rooted in the Bible, are true. That it is a collection of historical documents written down by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses, and they claim supernatural events. They very specific prophecies. Very specific prophecies, and those prophecies take place in the lifetime of other eyewitnesses. I'm not a servant of Billy. I'm a servant of the Most High. God on you. You have a good evening, sir. You be good now. Yeah. So the scriptures are reliable. The scriptures are reliable. That those eyewitnesses claim they man, I can't think right now. It's so late. They write down supernatural events. Sorry, those eyewitnesses. And those supernatural events take place in fulfillment of very specific prophecy. And the claim is that those events and the fulfillment of those prophecies are divine in origin rather than human. So that's important. That's important. That's the entire claim. It's falsifiable and you can check it. And people like Billy, people, I think I got a lot of people probably mad at me right now who's in the chat. But yeah, you can look it up. You can actually look it up. My prayer is that people who are following Billy and who have been looking into his content, that they would now look into Wes's content because it shows that Billy's content can't hold a candle to Wes's. Billy's claims about the world and what we ought to believe doesn't hold a candle to what Wes says we ought to believe. And so you can actually measure it. You can remove yourself from the equation and say this is about me, or this is about Billy, or this is about Wes. And you can say this is about the truth. The truth doesn't pick favorites. There's a famous quote in a book called The Intellectual Life, and it says the truth only serves its slaves. That's a good thought. Only people who genuinely want the truth actually find it. You don't want the truth, you won't find it. Now, here's the claim of Christianity. The truth isn't an idea, it's a person. It's Jesus Christ. And the claim of his existence is falsifiable as a historical figure. Dig into it, and hopefully after digging into it, you'll find that he was a historical figure, and he won't just be some dude that existed in history, but it'll be Lord, as he rightly deserves to be in your life. I hope you guys enjoy your evening. Stay tuned for more podcasts coming. We're talking about Black fraternities and sororities. People are going to be had us on that one. But then we're also going to be talking about the movie Wicked in a way that a lot of people aren't talking about the movie Wicked right now. We're not going to talk about we watched the movie and what we thought about it. We're going to talk about why such movies exist. And we're going to dive deep. And it took a turn that you're going to be interested in. So tune into the podcast. Thank you guys for checking in. Yeah, sorry. Let me share some of these comments. It's huge. God continues to expose those who go against him and deceive his people. Things are heating up. Amen. Amen. Everybody looking for a man to follow. You need a man to follow. Follow Jesus. That's it. Just seek truth, you say. But truth is a man. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Truth is a man. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So seek him. Seek him. Key to be. Okay. I don't know what that means. But yeah, I'm just not cool. That's all it is. But I hope you guys have a nice evening. I'll see you.